this video, we're going to learn about cloud databases and multi-tier architecture. So a tier refers to software or a hardware layer, but in the terms of database architecture, it refers to hardware. A single tier architecture was dominant prior to the 90s, and it was mostly just personal computers connected to monitors. Then multi-tier architectures became popular, which are two or more tiers that are connected. Web is a multi-tier architecture where the tiers are connected by the internet. The top tier is typically your web browser, and the tier below is the web server. Even lower tiers can be application servers, databases, or other services. So prior to the 2000s, most commercial software was located on-site. Companies had huge server rooms with lots of connected servers running enterprise applications. For example, when Sony Playstation launches a new game, it may need, let's say, 150 servers to set up the game. And the game architecture includes authentication servers, proxy servers, database servers, matchmaking servers, and lots of game servers, and a whole bunch of other servers to make up these 150 servers so that the game can run on the PlayStation network. And maybe 150 servers were necessary for the game launch where they expected, say, 100,000 players on launch day. But if after a few months, after the game has launched and the game becomes less and less popular, and let's say now only 2,000 players are playing this game, and we don't need 150 servers for only 2,000 players. So many of these servers become underutilized or not really used at all. And let's just say now that only 5 servers are needed, and then there's 145 servers that are just sitting around using up electricity and may encounter like hardware failures and other problems. So basically, long story short, companies had to pay IT people to set up all these servers, connect them all, keep the server room cooled and earthquake proof, and fix any hardware failures that came along. And it was really a costly thing to maintain. And also they needed more server rooms in other countries like Japan or England, so that international players that are playing that same game don't have any kind of lag in the game, because they don't want to have to connect to servers in the US if they live in Japan. But luckily, cloud computing came along, and companies like Amazon AWS or Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud, those guys came along to make this entire process easier. So rather than having to buy all this hardware, set it up, and maintain it, companies can just rent the number of virtual machines that they need and then give them back when they're no longer needed. A virtual machine is software that feels like an operating system. It has its own memory and CPU allocated to it, and it's actually kind of similar to having like a Nintendo emulator on your phone or your computer, where it looks and feels like a Nintendo, but it's really just software that's imitating an operating system. And you can even install Windows on a MacBook. You don't really have Windows on your MacBook, but you just have software that looks and feels like Windows. So that's another virtual machine. Another way to think about cloud services is think of having your own server room it's like buying your own house, where you have to pay for the house, you have to maintain it, fix any kind of leaking pipes and faucets with it, and repair any kind of roof damage, and pay all the utilities and bills yourself. Whereas cloud computing is kind of like a hotel, where you can go in and rent a room. If you have a lot of guests, rent a couple rooms and then give them back when you're ready to go. And you're just paying for that period of time that you're there and using what you need in that hotel, instead of having to own the entire complex and dealing with it all yourself. There's 3 main types of cloud services that cloud computing provides. There's infrastructure as a service, which is a server that provides computer processing, memory, and storage media. It's kind of like a customer just renting a computer. And examples of that is EC2 from AWS. EC2 stands for Elastic Cloud Computing. And these are the most popular types of servers that are rented from AWS, are these EC2 servers. And companies usually get a whole bunch of these, deploy their software on them, and release them when they don't need them anymore. There's also Platform as a Service, or PaaS, which provides a database, application development tools, and messaging services. For example, RDS, which stands for Relational Data Store, is a popular database that AWS provides. And then finally, there's Software as a Service, or SaaS, which is basically just a software subscription that you use, like Office 365, where you pay monthly for it just to use the software, or Salesforce. Most databases today are cloud databases, which are platforms as a service. Let's quickly talk about some benefits and risks of cloud databases. Some of the benefits of cloud databases are administration, which is handled by cloud providers, so you don't have to worry about installing, managing, upgrading, or backing up database systems. And this is pretty time-consuming, expensive, and complex, so there's a lot of features built in that just does all that for you. It also provides great security and reliability, elasticity, which means the ability to adapt to changes, such as increasing the size and numbers of copies of a database on demand. And cost for cloud computing is a lot cheaper than having to host and buy all those servers yourself. You'll save on storage, support, hardware maintenance, electricity, and so much more. The main concern with cloud computing is data privacy, because a lot of companies don't really want their data on another company's servers. So cloud database companies offer data policy regulations that most companies choose to accept.